How Mercedes secretly limited the M119 to protect their reputation. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Mercedes-Benz lied to you. For decades, they stood there in their three-pointed star, ivory tower, preaching about German engineering, precision, and honesty. But in the early 1990s, they built an engine so powerful, so utterly dominant, that they had to choke it down, strangle it, and hide what it could really do. Not because it was dangerous, not because it couldn't handle the power, but because if the world knew what this engine was truly capable of, it would have destroyed everything Mercedes had built their reputation on. You see, Mercedes wasn't just the company that made luxury cars. They were the company that made luxury cars. Rolls-Royce was for royalty. Bentley was for old money. But Mercedes was for people who had made it. Doctors, lawyers, executives, people who wanted the world to know they were successful, but not gaudy about it. Understated, refined, German. And in that world, there were rules, unspoken rules that everyone understood. Your S-Class wasn't supposed to embarrass Ferraris at stoplights. Your wagon wasn't supposed to lap Porsches at the Nürburgring. That wasn't dignified. That wasn't what a Mercedes did. But then in 1989, some absolute madmen in Stuttgart's AMG division did something unforgivable. They took Mercedes' already impressive M119 V8, and they asked a very dangerous question. What if we just didn't hold back? What they created was a monster. Its name was the M119. And this is the story of how Mercedes built the greatest engine they never wanted you to know about. Our story begins not in 1989, but in 1963. That's when Mercedes released the 600 Grosser, a car so absurdly over-engineered that it made Rolls-Royces look like kit cars. It had hydraulics for everything. The seats moved with hydraulics. The windows, hydraulics. The trunk lid, you guessed it. This thing probably had a hydraulic coffee maker hidden somewhere. But most importantly, under that impossibly long hood sat Mercedes' first modern V8, the M100. It was a 3-liter beast that put out 250 horsepower, which in 1963 was like strapping a rocket to a bank vault. It was smooth, powerful, and quintessentially Mercedes' dignified violence. The M100 set a precedent that would define Mercedes' V8s for decades. It wasn't about having the highest horsepower number. It was about having endless torque delivered so smoothly you could balance a champagne glass on the valve cover at full throttle. It was about power that whispered rather than shouted. Throughout the 70s and 80s, Mercedes kept refining their V8s, the M116, the M117. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering. Cast iron blocks built like bridge supports, overbuilt components that could probably survive a nuclear blast. These engines routinely went 300,000 miles without major service. They were incredible, but each one was also safe, conservative. They made the right amount of power, not too much, just enough to waft you to the opera in complete silence, while peasants in their Audis wondered what it must be like to have truly arrived. Mercedes had become comfortable. They were the standard, the benchmark. Everyone else was chasing them, and they knew it. Why take risks? Why push boundaries? They were Mercedes-Benz. They didn't need to prove anything to anyone. But then the 1980s happened. And if you've been paying attention to literally any car story from the 80s, you know what comes next. The Japanese showed up. Honda released the NSX. And suddenly a Japanese economy car company was making a supercar that embarrassed Ferrari. Nissan dropped the 300ZX with twin turbos and world-beating performance. Toyota was about to unleash the Supra. And worst of all, these cars weren't just fast, they were reliable. They didn't leak oil. They didn't need a second mortgage to maintain. They just worked. The Europeans were panicking. BMW was scrambling. Porsche was on the verge of bankruptcy, saved only by the Cayenne SUV and consulting deals. And Mercedes was selling station wagons to soccer moms and sedans to dentists. Sure, they still had prestige. They still had that three-pointed star. But for the first time in decades, Mercedes was looking old, stodgy. Their cars were tanks, sure, but tanks aren't exactly thrilling to drive. The W124 E-Class was brilliant, but it was about as exciting as watching paint dry on a beige wall. Younger buyers, the ones with money to spend, were looking elsewhere. They wanted driving excitement. They wanted technology. They wanted to feel something when they pressed the accelerator. And Mercedes wasn't giving them that. In boardrooms across Stuttgart, executives were getting nervous. Market share was slipping. The average age of Mercedes buyers was creeping up. Something had to change. But in Falterbach, a small town just outside Stuttgart, a team of engineers led by Hans Werner Aufrecht and Erhard Melcher had been quietly building race cars. You might know them by their initials, AMG. Now, AMG wasn't officially part of Mercedes at this point. They were the crazy cousins that Mercedes pretended not to know at family gatherings. AMG would take Mercedes sedans, rip out their sensible engines, and replace them with fire-breathing monsters. They won touring car championships. They built cars that absolutely terrorized European racetracks. And Mercedes' official response was basically, "We don't know these people." But everyone knew. And secretly, Mercedes loved it, because AMG was doing what Mercedes could never do officially. They were making Mercedes fast, really fast. They were winning races on Sunday, which meant selling cars on Monday. And they were doing it all without Mercedes having to officially get their hands dirty. It was the perfect arrangement. AMG took all the risk, all the controversy, all the potential blowback if something went wrong. And Mercedes got to quietly benefit from the halo effect. Oh yes, those AMG chaps do make our cars rather quick, don't they? Nothing to do with us, of course. But by the mid-1980s, Mercedes realized they needed to get more serious about performance. Not openly, not brazenly, but they needed a foundation, an engine platform that could serve both their luxury customers and, when needed, be transformed into a genuine performance powerhouse. In 1985, Mercedes finally decided to build a proper performance V8, not for AMG, but for themselves. They called it the M119, and the goal was simple: create the most advanced, most powerful, most sophisticated V8 in the world. Beat BMW's inline 6, embarrass the Japanese, and do it the Mercedes way. The M119 was a work of art. All aluminum construction to save weight, a rarity for Mercedes, who typically preferred the durability of iron. 4 valves per cylinder when most V8s were still using 2. Dual overhead cams per bank. Variable intake geometry. It was cutting-edge technology wrapped in that signature Mercedes over-engineering. And here's where it gets interesting. Mercedes designed this engine to displace 5 liters in its base form. But they didn't just design it for 5 liters. The block, the internals, the bearing surfaces, everything was built to handle significantly more displacement, more boost, more power, more everything. Why? Because Mercedes knew exactly what they were building. They knew AMG was going to get their hands on it, and they knew that when AMG did, they were going to do absolutely unholy things to it. The engineers who designed the M119 weren't stupid. They'd seen what AMG had done with previous Mercedes engines. They'd watched them bore out blocks, upgrade internals, and extract power that Mercedes claimed was impossible. So this time, they built the engine from the ground up to handle it. They gave AMG the canvas. They just couldn't officially acknowledge what would be painted on it. The M119 debuted in 1,989 inches,